Hello, my name is Miss Ramirez, and in this segment, we're going to be meeting one of our special animal friends. She is a ball python, and her name is Pelota. So she is one of the many reptiles that lives in our animal portable, or the live animals room is what we call it. And since you guys aren't able to visit us this year, we're going to go ahead and just introduce you guys to one of our animals. So let me go ahead and pull her out. Be thinking about, what do you think she looks like? So let me take her out for you guys. So this is Pelota, and she is a ball python. So why do you think they got that name? So ball pythons get that name because when they're threatened or scared, they will actually curl in a tight ball. And that's to help them hide or camouflage. Now I use the word camouflage. Camouflage just means to blend in with their background. So sometimes when we say that word, people think of a chameleon that can change colors, but camouflage doesn't always have to mean changing color. It just means they can blend in with their background. So for example, she has this perfect brownish black scale color. The environment that she lives in, they're native to Africa, and they're found in the savannas and scrublands. And that's like a dry, grassy area. So she has perfect camouflage for her native habitat. Now, I said they're originally from Africa. Here in a second, I'm actually going to show you guys a globe, and we're going to see where Africa is. So here's our globe, and you can see that Africa is this large continent right over here. And we know that we live in North America, and if we go to the other side of the globe, here is North America where we live. Now, you might have seen her earlier sticking her tongue out. Snakes smell with their tongue. So we know that we smell with our nose. Not every animal does that. So snakes are very unique. They're using their tongue to smell. So their tongue, it sticks out and it's forked so that they can gather scent smells all over the place. Now we can't actually see these little scent molecules, but when they stick their tongue out, it's gathering those scent molecules that are floating in the air. And then she will stick her tongue back inside her mouth into a special organ called the Jacobson's organ. And that organ helps her brain decide or decipher what she's actually smelling. Now, Pelota here, she's an adult, so she's already full grown. She's not going to get any bigger. The average size for ball pythons is between 3 and about 5 feet. So she's at her full length right now. And then the number one question we get about her is she venomous? So if she were venomous, I promise you I would not be holding her. So we actually don't have any venomous snakes as pets here at the EEC. You have to have special permits for that. So she is not venomous, but instead she is what we call a constrictor. So the way that she hunts and kills her food is through constriction, and that just means squeezing. So inside her mouth, she actually has teeth, and she has upwards of 100 recurved teeth. And that just means her teeth actually curve backwards, and that's to help grab her prey or whatever she's eating. And it prevents that prey from escaping. So when she grabs that prey with her teeth, she will actually use her body. She'll wrap around it super tight, and she will squeeze that mouse or whatever she's eating. As she's squeezing it, she is essentially suffocating whatever she's squeezing, and when it dies, she will actually eat it whole. So she's not venomous. Venomous snakes actually have fangs. So let me show you what I mean by fangs. So here's a skeleton of a venomous snake right here. You can see that this snake has these two really long fangs. So those fangs are actually used to inject venom. So venomous snakes have venom, and that venom can either paralyze an animal, it can kill the animal. Venoms work in different ways depending upon the type of snake. So you can actually see here that this snake actually is venomous because it has these fangs. She does not have fangs, and I'll show you later a picture of what her teeth actually look like. But an example of some venomous snakes would be things like copperheads and also rattlesnakes. They inject venom into their prey to kill them. And here's a little example of a rattlesnake tail. So you can actually hear it. I don't know if y'all can hear it, but I can. You can actually hear it rattling there. And now snakes, as they age and grow, they will actually shed their skin. So sometimes if you're lucky, if you're walking outside, you might see some snake skin. So here's some snake skin from Pelota. So she sheds a few times out of the year. Sometimes it will be long, full sheds, and usually as they age or if they're missing some nutrients, their shed might come off in little pieces. So that's kind of like what you see here. But it kind of feels like, some people refer to it as it feels like a plastic bag. So that's the snakeskin shed. And she is both a predator and a prey. So think about what those words mean. So a predator is an animal that hunts. So she is an excellent hunter. Again, she's hunting for rodents usually. But she's also a prey. There's other animals that might eat her as well. So larger snakes might eat her. Even some birds of prey might try and eat her as well. So animals can be both predator and prey. And she also has these heat sensing pits near her mouth. They kind of look like the little holes that you're seeing. And maybe you can see a close-up of them right there. So she can actually sense animals through their body heat. So that's pretty interesting. Now she's our pet. So we actually feed her mice and small rats, but in the wild, they do eat other things as well. So in the wild, they will eat rodents and more native rodents that are actually native to Africa. And I'll show you guys a picture of one of those native rodents in just a second. So I'm gonna go ahead and put Pelota up and we're gonna take a look at a quick little PowerPoint so that we can learn more about Pelota. And she kind of doesn't wanna stay in her little, her little container right now. So let me try and see if I can get her to cooperate and stay inside. And then we'll get that PowerPoint started. So let me share my screen with you guys and we'll take a look at this super quick little presentation. And let's get that loaded. So you can see here is our ball python. And remember I told you she had about 100 recurved teeth. So this is what I mean by recurved. Her teeth are just moving backwards, and that's so that it makes it very hard for that prey to escape her jaws. And then this is a jerboa. It's a rodent native to Africa. So we don't have these here, but in Africa, the wild ball pythons, this is what they would be eating. And they look so cute. These little rodents, you can see they almost look like a gerbil to me, but they have these big ears, those long feet, and the long tail. So how do you think those body parts help that jerboa to escape predators? So the jerboa, you can actually see from its coat color or its fur color that it has wonderful camouflage, so it can blend in with its environment. It also has those big ears so that it can easily listen and detect predators. It has those big feet for running and probably jumping too, and that long tail to also help it with jumping and running as well. So sometimes those body parts, those adaptations can help them escape predators, and sometimes it's just not good enough. But that's all part of a food chain. Eventually something has to get eaten by something else, and that is how our carnivores, especially, how they survive, by eating other things. So Pelota and most snakes are carnivores. They are meat eaters, so they're going to be hunting other animals for food. And in this next slide is just an example of a news article from the Smithsonian Magazine, and it's talking about invasive species. So invasive species are animals and plants that are not native to a particular area. So for example, in Florida, they're having a huge problem with Burmese pythons. Now these snakes are not native to Florida. They're not supposed to be there. They're originally from Asia. And there are a variety of guesses onto how they arrived in Florida and why they're having such a huge problem in Florida with these snakes being everywhere. So one of them is scientists think that back in the 90s when Hurricane Andrew hit Florida, it destroyed a breeding facility and a lot of Burmese pythons were released into the wild. And because Florida has a very similar climate and habitat similar to Asia, these snakes are just thriving. Another possibility is the pet trade. So unfortunately, people think these snakes are cool, and they are, but they're buying them as pets and they're not fully prepared to take care of them. These snakes can get really long, up to 17 feet. So they get big, they live a long time, and they require a lot of food. So sometimes people can't take care of them anymore, and they actually release them into the wild, and that's not a good thing. So when these snakes are released into the wild, they are actually thriving, again, because the conditions are so similar to Asia. So we're going to take a look at this article from the Smithsonian Magazine. And if you are interested in reptiles, you could be a herpetologist. And a herpetologist is just a scientist that studies reptiles. So this is from the Smithsonian magazine. It's called The Snakes That Ate Florida. And then this little picture that you guys see here, these are bounty hunters and biologists, and they are waiting in the Everglades, the swampland of Florida. And they are actually trapping and euthanizing these invasive snakes. And again, this is such a huge problem in Florida. There are so many of them that they are being very destructive to the natural habitat of Florida. So you can see, here's the beautiful Everglades. You can see it's kind of like a nice swampland. And it's just a beautiful area to be in. And as I scroll through, let's see, there were some really cool pictures of some dissections that these scientists have done. Oh, and there's Florida and the Everglades. And so there they are using tracking devices so that they can track the movement of some of these snakes. And then you can see some of the snakes there. Now, Burmese pythons get a lot larger than ball pythons. So these guys get upwards of 17, 16, 17 feet. Remember Pelota, our little ball python? She's only going to get between 5 and 6 feet. And she's already full grown there at that too. So these snakes are a lot larger than the ones that they're seeing here in Florida. So here's a cool little picture here. These are some euthanized pythons, and you can see the size range and just how long they are and how thick and fat they are as well. And again, because there's so many of them and they're not supposed to be there, they are unfortunately having to euthanize them. But they are using them in studies. So they're learning a lot of interesting things about these snakes as they're dissecting them and studying them. And then you can see here, this was a dissection. You can see the eggs. So the undeveloped eggs are these right here, and that big green thing is the gallbladder. Look how big that is. And then these little blobs there on the bottom are actually fat bodies. So these snakes must be eating really good if they have that many fat reserves in their body. And we keep moving down. You can see another image of the dissection and those blobs, those marshmallow-like blobs that are their fat reserves. And then, so cool to do dissections on these snakes. And then here's a picture of some bobcat claws that they actually found inside one of the snakes. So these snakes are eating things like bobcats. And then here's an example of their skull, and you can see those recurved teeth, those teeth that curve in backwards. So imagine what it must be feeling like if you got bitten by one of those. But this is just a really cool article. I highly encourage you guys to look it up and read it on your own time. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to our PowerPoint, and I have one last thing I want to show you. We actually do have snakes here that are native to Texas. And this is a video of a rough green snake, some people call it a grass snake, that I found here at the EEC as I was walking our trails. So as I show you guys the video, be making some observations about what you notice. So I'm actually going to put our little video in full screen so that you can see it better. And I know you guys aren't able to come out here this year, but we do have lots of wonderful trails. I still like to go walking on them. And this is one of the little snakes that I found that day. This was a couple of weeks ago, so it would have been back in early November. You can see the fall leaves are still on the ground. And you can see he kind of stood out really quickly to me because he's bright green and the leaves on the ground are brown. So he didn't really camouflage very well. But think about during the spring and summertime when that grass is nice and green, he probably has excellent camouflage then and would blend in really well. And he was actually a very skinny snake. This species of snake doesn't get really fat or thick. He was probably about the size of think of like a marker. So probably about that thickness, but he was super long. I was surprised at how long he was. And he had this beautiful bright red tongue. And then if you're able to look at his eyes look so big in comparison to his head. And you can also see the scales. You can make out those beautiful scales. He would also shed skin too. So again, you know, as I'm walking, always be on the lookout for what signs of animals you can find, whether it's snake skin or animal scat, and scats just poop. So I know when we go outside, I always like the kids to look at different kinds of scat or poop. And we poke at it with sticks because we can learn a lot about what animals are living near us and what they've been eating. Obviously, you never want to touch that scat, but it is interesting to see what's inside it and what these animals have eating. been eating. So usually the number one scat that we see out here would be coyote scat. But you can see the movement of the snake and how he bobs his head kind of like back and forth. And he's also using his tongue to smell, just like Pelota was. So I'm going to stop my screen share, and that's all I have for you guys for Pelota and snakes in general. And hopefully sometime soon we'll be able to see everyone again.